A 6-year-old girl knelt on the cold kitchen floor of a mansion in Greenwich, Connecticut. Her small hands shook as she cradled her baby brother's limp body against her chest. The empty pill bottle lay 3 feet away, white tablets scattered across the black marble like fallen stars. The child's breath came in ragged gasps, her voice barely a whisper. "Wake up, Ollie. Please wake up." The baby didn't move. His chest rose and fell in shallow, uneven rhythms, too slow, too faint. His skin had turned the color of winter clouds. Behind her, framed in the doorway, a woman stood perfectly still. Designer heels, silk robe, manicured fingers crossed over her chest. Her face showed nothing. No concern, no fear, no emotion at all. Just cold observation. Outside, gravel crunched under expensive tires. A car door slammed. Footsteps pounded toward the house. The woman's eyes flickered. Something crossed her perfect features. Not guilt, calculation. The front door exploded open. A man in $1,000 suit stumbled into the hallway. His tie hung loose. His face was haggard from 90 hours without sleep. He froze. The kitchen scene burned into his vision. His daughter, his son, the pills. Time stopped. Then his voice tore through the silence. "What did you do to my son?" The woman in the doorway turned slowly. Her expression shifted, softened, worried, concerned. The transformation took less than 2 seconds. "Nathaniel, thank God you're home. I don't know what happened. I just found them." "Daddy, she gave him the pills." The little girl's voice cut through the lie. "Lots of pills. He won't wake up." Nathaniel Thornton crossed the kitchen in 3 strides. He dropped to his knees beside his daughter, scooped the baby into his arms. The child's body felt too light, too still. "Call 911 now." "Nate, let me explain." "Call them." His hands trembled as he checked his son's pulse. Faint, so faint. The woman named Vivian pulled out her phone. Her fingers moved with deliberate slowness. Adelaide Thornton watched her stepmother with eyes far too knowing for 6 years old. Eyes that had seen too much, learned too much, survived too much. "I have proof, Daddy." Nathaniel looked at his daughter, really looked. For the first time in months, he saw the dark circles under her eyes, the way her clothes hung loose on her small frame, the purple fingerprints on her wrist half hidden by her sleeve. Proof of what? Adelaide's blue eyes met his without blinking. Everything. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer, but to understand how a family reached this moment, we must step back through months of silence, months of suffering, when a child became the only guardian standing between her baby brother and death. We must go back to when it began. 11 months earlier, the Thornton mansion glowed with morning light. Charlotte Thornton moved through her home like a dancer, 7 months pregnant. Her hand rested on the swell of her belly. In the nursery, 5-year-old Adelaide sat on the carpet sorting tiny clothes. "Mama, will the baby like this one?" She held up a blue onesie with stars. Charlotte knelt beside her daughter, movements slow, careful. Her face had grown pale over recent weeks. Dark shadows circled her eyes, but her smile remained warm. "He'll love it, darling." "How do you know it's a he?" "Mama knows." Charlotte pulled Adelaide close, breathed in the scent of her daughter's hair, strawberry shampoo, innocence. "Can I tell you a secret?" Adelaide nodded. "You're going to be the best big sister in the whole world." Charlotte's hand trembled as she touched her daughter's face. The doctors had told her the truth 3 days ago. The pregnancy complications, the heart condition, the impossible choices ahead. But she hadn't told Nathaniel yet. Some truths were too heavy to speak aloud. Adelaide listened carefully. "If something ever happens to Mommy, nothing's gonna happen. But if it does," Charlotte's voice grew urgent. "Promise you'll watch over your baby brother. Can you do that for me?" Adelaide saw something in her mother's eyes, something that made her chest tighten with fear she didn't understand. "I promise, Mama." 2 weeks later, Charlotte Thornton went into emergency labor. The hospital corridor stretched endlessly under fluorescent lights. Antiseptic smell, machines beeping, doctors rushing past. Nathaniel sat in the waiting room, head in his hands. Adelaide curled beside him, clutching her mother's scarf. The silk still carried Charlotte's perfume, gardenias and vanilla. But Thornton. A doctor approached, mask pulled down, exhaustion etched in every line of his face. Nathaniel stood. My wife. Your son is healthy, 6 pounds 4 ounces, strong lungs. The doctor paused. But your wife's heart gave out during delivery. We resuscitated her. She's stable but critical. Can I see her? She's asking for your daughter. Adelaide's hand tightened in her father's grip. They walked down the hallway. Each step felt like walking underwater. Charlotte lay in the hospital bed. Tubes and wires connected her to machines that beeped too fast. But when she saw Adelaide, she smiled. Come here, baby girl. Adelaide climbed onto the bed, careful not to disturb the wires. Charlotte's hand felt cold. The baby, your brother, Oliver, he's perfect. Charlotte's breathing came in short gasps. You have to be strong now, stronger than any little girl should have to be. Mama, you're scaring me. I need you to remember what you promised. Charlotte's eyes found Nathaniel's. Both of you, keep them safe, together, always. Charlotte, don't. Promise me. I promise. Charlotte's monitor began to scream. Nurses rushed in. Strong hands pulled Adelaide away. Mama, mama! The last thing Adelaide saw was her mother's hand falling limp against white sheets. Charlotte Thornton died 47 minutes later. The funeral happened on a Tuesday. Rain fell in sheets. The cemetery became a blur of black umbrellas and grey tombstones. Adelaide stood at the graveside in a black dress too big for her. She held a white rose. People talked about heaven and angels, but their words meant nothing. Her mother was gone. Oliver, 8 days old, slept in Nathaniel's arms, oblivious to the destruction his birth had caused. Adelaide didn't cry. She watched her father instead. Watched him hold Oliver with mechanical movements. Watched him stare at nothing. Watched something inside him break. That night, Nathaniel put Oliver in his crib and walked to his study. The door clicked shut. Adelaide heard the lock turn. She stood outside for an hour, listening to the silence. Then she went to the nursery, picked up her baby brother, 10 days old, helpless, motherless. Mama asked me to watch over you, she whispered, rocking him. I will. The months that followed became a blur of silence and absence. Nathaniel threw himself into work. Thornton Pharmaceuticals demanded his attention. Board meetings, merger negotiations, product launches. He left before dawn, returned after midnight. Sometimes he didn't return at all. Harriet Bellamy, the family's longtime nanny, stepped in. She fed Oliver, changed him, loved him with fierce devotion. But Adelaide saw how her father looked at Oliver. Every time Nathaniel's eyes landed on the baby, guilt crossed his features. Charlotte had died bringing Oliver into the world. Some part of Nathaniel couldn't separate the birth from the death. 6 months passed. Then Vivian Ashford entered their lives. She appeared at Thornton Pharmaceuticals as a consultant. Strategic development, market analysis. Her resume was impeccable. Her appearance calculated. Auburn hair in a perfect twist, grey suit that cost more than most monthly salaries, smile that never reached her eyes. She noticed Nathaniel immediately, the grieving widower, the wealthy CEO, the broken man trying to hold everything together. An opportunity. Vivian did her research, learned about Charlotte, the pregnancy, the death, the children. She found Nathaniel's weaknesses and studied them. Coffee appeared on his desk during late meetings, always black, 2 sugars, exactly how he took it. Rough day, Mr. Thornton. Nathaniel looked up, eyes bloodshot. How did you know? Lucky guess. Vivian set the coffee down. I lost someone too. My daughter. Emily, she was 5. The lie came easily. Practiced. Perfect. I'm sorry. So am I. Vivienne's eyes glistened with manufactured tears. But we survive. We keep moving because that's what they would want. Nathaniel studied her face, found something he desperately needed. Understanding. Permission to move forward. Thank you for the coffee. Anytime. The seeds were planted. Over the following weeks, Vivienne made herself indispensable. She anticipated Nathaniel's needs, laughed at his jokes, listened when he talked about Charlotte. Slowly, she wove herself into his life. 7 months after Charlotte's death, Vivienne came to the mansion for the first time. A dinner party, business associates. Adelaide watched from the stairs. The woman in the red dress smiled at her father. Nathaniel smiled back, really smiled, for the first time since Mama died. Something cold settled in Adelaide's stomach. Harriet Bellamy noticed too. "Sir, might I have a word?" Nathaniel barely glanced up. "What is it?" "That woman, Miss Ashford." Harriet struggled for words. "Something's not right about her." "Not right how? I can't explain it, but I've been with this family 30 years. I know when something's off." Nathaniel's face hardened. The grief he'd been drowning in for months found a target. "Are you questioning my judgment?" "No, sir. I'm concerned." "I don't need concern. I need support. If you can't provide that, perhaps we should reconsider your position." Harriet's face went pale. "Mr. Thornton, please. That will be all." 2 weeks later, Harriet Bellamy was gone. Fired. The woman who had helped raise Nathaniel, who had held Adelaide as a baby, who loved Oliver like her own grandchild. Erased. "Why did Harriet leave?" Adelaide asked that night. Nathaniel didn't look up from his laptop. "She decided to retire." "But she didn't say goodbye." "Sometimes people just leave. You'll understand when you're older." Adelaide didn't understand. But she was learning the world made less sense without Mama. Vivienne's visits became frequent. Dinners, meetings, casual drop-bys. She brought gifts for Adelaide. Expensive dolls the little girl never played with. Designer dresses that hung unworn. "You and I are going to be such good friends," Vivienne would say. Smile bright, empty. Adelaide said nothing, just watched and waited. 8 months after Charlotte's death, Nathaniel proposed. The wedding happened quickly. No big ceremony, just a judge, 2 witnesses, and a marriage certificate that made Vivienne Ashford into Vivienne Thornton. Adelaide stood as flower girl in a white dress holding 6-month-old Oliver. The baby gurgled happily. The photographer called for smiles. Adelaide couldn't manage one. In the photo that would sit on the mantel for exactly 4 weeks before disappearing, Adelaide's face showed only fear. The first week after the wedding, Vivienne played her role perfectly. She made breakfast, sang to Oliver, asked Adelaide about school, kissed Nathaniel goodbye and welcomed him home with a smile. The perfect stepmother, the perfect wife, the perfect lie. Adelaide watched with growing dread. Then on day 8, Nathaniel left for a business trip. 5 weeks in Chicago, he told Vivienne. The merger won't finalize itself. We'll be fine, won't we? Vivienne smiled at Adelaide. Adelaide nodded, silent. Nathaniel bent to hug his daughter. Be good for Vivienne. Okay, Daddy. He left before dawn. Adelaide watched his car disappear down the driveway. An hour later, she heard Oliver crying. The wailing went on and on. Adelaide found Vivienne in the master bedroom scrolling through her phone. Vivienne, Oliver's crying. I know. Vivienne didn't look up. He needs his bottle. Then give him one. Adelaide hesitated. But you're supposed to. Vivienne's eyes lifted. The warmth that had been there for 8 days vanished. Listen carefully. Your father isn't here. We don't have to pretend anymore. Her voice dropped to ice. I didn't marry Nathaniel to play nanny. I married him for his money. You and that crying mistake are just obstacles I have to tolerate. Adelaide's breath stopped. Now get out. And if you tell your father, I'll make sure Oliver has a very unfortunate accident. Understand? Adelaide ran. She ran to the nursery where Oliver screamed himself purple, picked him up with shaking hands. At 5.5, she'd never held a bottle alone, never changed a diaper by herself, but Harriet had let her help, had taught her the basics. Adelaide remembered. She warmed the bottle, tested it on her wrist, fed her baby brother while tears streamed down her face. "It's okay, Ollie. I'll take care of you." Oliver's crying faded, then stopped, then became sleep. Adelaide held him for 3 hours, afraid to put him down. The mask had fallen. The monster had shown its face, and Adelaide realized something terrible. No one was coming to save them. If Oliver was going to survive, she had to do it herself. 3 days after Nathaniel left, Adelaide discovered the bruises. She was changing Oliver's diaper when she saw them. Purple marks on his inner thighs, fingerprint-shaped, fresh. Her hands froze. "Vivian," her voice came out small. "Why is Ollie hurt?" The stepmother appeared in the doorway, glanced at the bruises without concern. "He squirms during changes. I have to hold him still." "But they're really dark." Vivian crossed the room in 3 steps. Her hand shot out, gripped Adelaide's shoulder hard enough to make the little girl gasp. "Listen carefully. If you tell your father, I will take Oliver away. There are places where unwanted babies disappear. Forever." Adelaide's heart hammered. "Do you understand?" "Yes." "Good girl." Vivian released her and walked away, heels clicking on hardwood. Adelaide stood frozen. Then she rolled up her sleeve. 5 small crescents, already turning purple. She pulled the sleeve down quickly. That night, Adelaide lay awake, listening to Oliver cry through the monitor. The crying went on for 4 hours before Vivian finally went to the nursery. Adelaide heard footsteps, a door opening. Then Vivian's voice, cold and sharp. "Shut up! Just shut up!" A sound like something being set down hard. Oliver's crying spiked, then dropped to terrified whimpers. Adelaide crept to her door, looked through the crack. Through the open nursery door, she saw Vivian standing over Oliver's crib. The woman's hands were around the baby's neck, not squeezing, just resting there. A threat. "If you don't learn to be quiet, I'll give you something to really cry about." Adelaide's hand flew to her mouth. Vivian left, went downstairs. Television turned on, laughter and music. Oliver's whimpers faded to exhausted silence. Adelaide waited 10 minutes, then crept across the hall. Oliver lay in his crib, 7 months old, staring at the ceiling with wide, scared eyes. When he saw Adelaide, he reached for her with desperate hands. She lifted him out. He was too light, too thin. "It's okay, I'm here. I won't let her hurt you." But even as she said it, Adelaide knew the truth. She was 6 years old. What could she do? The answer came slowly over the following days. She became invisible. Every morning, Adelaide woke at 6, before Vivian. She crept to the nursery, fed Oliver his bottle, changed his diaper, held him until he fell back asleep. Then she made herself breakfast, usually cereal, sometimes toast. She walked to school by herself. 6 years old, walking 4 blocks through a wealthy neighborhood where no one noticed. After school, she hurried home. Oliver would be screaming, hungry, unchanged for hours. Vivian would be in the master bedroom or out shopping, anywhere but with the baby. Adelaide developed a routine: bottle, diaper, songs. She sang every lullaby her mother had taught her. Dinner was whatever she could make: peanut butter sandwiches, crackers, leftover takeout. Vivian barely touched. Bath time, story time, bedtime. All of it Adelaide did alone. And every night when Nathaniel called from Chicago, Adelaide would answer with Vivian standing right behind her. "How are you, sweetheart?" Adelaide would look at Vivian, at the warning in those cold eyes. "Fine, Daddy." "Is Vivian taking good care of you?" "Yes, Daddy." "Good. I'll be home soon. Love you." "Love you too." The lies tasted like ash. 1 week into Nathaniel's absence, Miss Eleanor Whitmore noticed something. The 70-year-old widow lived next door, Every morning she sat on her porch with coffee and the newspaper. And every morning now she saw little Adelaide Thornton walking to school alone. No parent, no nanny, just a 6-year-old child with a backpack too big for her. Eleanor began to pay attention. She noticed Adelaide coming home at 3:30, rushing inside. She noticed lights in the nursery burning until midnight. She noticed Vivian leaving at 10 a.m. in designer clothes, not returning until 5, shopping bags in hand. And one afternoon, when Eleanor took her garbage to the curb, she saw something that made her blood run cold. Through the kitchen window, she watched Vivian grab Adelaide by the arm, shake her hard enough to make the child's head snap back. She saw Adelaide fall to the floor. She saw Vivian step over the child and walk away. Eleanor went inside, sat at her kitchen table, pulled out a notebook. She began to write down everything she saw. Date, time, details. Someone needed to be watching. On day 12 of Nathaniel's absence, winter arrived early. Snow fell in thick sheets. Greenwich transformed into a postcard. Beautiful, cold, dangerous. Adelaide made a mistake that day. She was carrying Oliver downstairs when she slipped on the last step. She didn't fall, but Oliver's weight shifted. She grabbed the banister hard to keep from dropping him. The bottle in her other hand flew out, shattered on the marble floor. Milk and glass everywhere. Vivian appeared from the living room, face dark with fury. "What did you do?" "I'm sorry, I didn't mean. You stupid, clumsy child." Vivian grabbed Adelaide's arm, yanked her away from Oliver, who started crying. "Do you know how much that marble costs? I'll clean it. You'll do more than that." Vivian dragged Adelaide toward the back door. "You need to learn to be careful." "What are you doing?" Vivian opened the door. Arctic air blasted in. Outside, snow fell in blinding sheets. The temperature gauge read 28 degrees. Outside, 1 hour. Adelaide's stomach dropped. "But I don't have a coat." "Should have thought of that before you made a mess." Vivian shoved Adelaide onto the back porch. "If you're very good and very quiet, I'll let you back in before you freeze." "Please, I'm sorry." "What about Oliver? He needs his bottle." "Oliver would be better off without a sister who drops him." Vivian smiled. "Maybe I should just keep you out here permanently. Would you like that? Or maybe I should put Oliver in the freezer instead. Which would you prefer?" Adelaide's blood turned to ice. "I'll stay out here. Please don't hurt him." "Smart girl." The door slammed shut. Adelaide stood on the porch in her school uniform. Thin cotton shirt, plaid skirt, knee socks, no coat, no shoes. The cold bit immediately. She wrapped her arms around herself, tried to stay warm, tried to be strong, tried not to cry. Through the kitchen window, she saw Vivian walk past carrying Oliver. The woman glanced at Adelaide once, smiled, pulled the curtains closed. Adelaide lasted 45 minutes before her fingers went numb. Another 10 before she couldn't feel her toes. Another 5 before she shook so violently her teeth cracked together. Next door, Eleanor Whitmore looked out her window, saw the small figure huddled on the Thorntons' back porch. She grabbed her phone, started to dial 911, then hesitated. If she called, there would be an investigation. But Vivian Thornton was married to one of the wealthiest men in Connecticut. She had connections, lawyers, power. Would anyone believe a neighbor? Eleanor lowered the phone, but she opened her notebook and wrote, December 14th, 7:47 p.m. Child locked outside in snowstorm. Temperature 28 degrees. No coat. Left for minimum 1 hour. She added, call CPS if pattern continues. At 3:58 p.m., the back door opened. Adelaide stumbled inside. Her skin blue white, her whole body convulsing. Vivian looked her up and down. Clean up that glass, then go to your room. I don't want to see you for the rest of the night. Adelaide's hands shook so badly she could barely hold the dustpan, but she cleaned every piece, every drop. Then she checked on Oliver. He was in his crib crying weakly, unchanged for hours. Adelaide changed him with fingers that wouldn't stop trembling. fed him, held him. "I'm sorry, Ollie. I'm trying so hard." That night, Adelaide ran a bath as hot as she could stand, sat in the water until feeling returned in painful needles. Then, she looked at her hands. The tips of 3 fingers had turned black. Frostbite. Adelaide pulled on gloves before bed. Didn't take them off for a week. On day 18, Adelaide made a decision. She couldn't protect Oliver by being invisible. Vivian would continue hurting them. No one would stop her. Adelaide needed proof. She waited until Vivian left for shopping. Then went to the master bedroom and searched. She found her mother's things in the back of the closet. Boxes Nathaniel had packed but couldn't donate. Dresses that smelled like gardenias. Jewelry that caught light. Books with Charlotte's name inside. And at the bottom of a box labeled Charlotte, Personal. Adelaide found it. Her mother's old cell phone. The battery was dead. But Adelaide knew where Vivian kept chargers. She took one to her room and plugged in the phone. It took 3 hours to charge. When the screen lit up, Adelaide found dozens of photos. Her mother's smiling face. Adelaide as a baby. Family trips and ordinary moments that now felt like treasures. Adelaide's throat tightened, but she pushed grief aside. She had work to do. She deleted all the photos to make space. Explored the phone's functions. Camera, video, voice recorder. This would work. Adelaide spent 2 days learning to use the phone. Practiced taking videos. Practiced recordings. Practiced until she could use every function quickly and quietly. Then she hid the phone inside her teddy bear. The one her mother had given her on her 4th birthday. The one with a secret zipper in the back. The phone fit perfectly. Adelaide was ready. She began documenting everything. When Vivian grabbed her arm hard enough to leave bruises, Adelaide recorded it. When Vivian threatened to make Oliver disappear, Adelaide captured every word. When Vivian left Oliver crying for 6 hours, Adelaide took photos of the clock and the baby's exhausted face. Every incident, every threat, every moment of cruelty. Adelaide became a detective at 6 years old. Methodical, careful, brave. She kept a diary too, hidden under her mattress. Day 23. Vivian grabbed my hair. It hurts. She said bad things will happen if I tell Daddy. Day 27. Oliver crying 4 hours. Vivian won't feed him. I can't reach the formula. Day 30. Locked in basement 2 hours. Dark and cold. Oliver screamed until his voice was gone. I sang to him. Each entry dated, timed, specific, evidence. Then on day 24, Adelaide discovered something that made her blood run cold. She'd been looking for more batteries for the phone. She checked Vivian's nightstand drawer. Inside she found a small camera, the kind used for security systems. Adelaide turned it over, examined it. Then she understood. She ran to Oliver's nursery, picked up the stuffed elephant that sat on the dresser, the one Vivian had given Oliver 2 weeks ago. Adelaide squeezed it, felt something hard inside. She found the seam, opened it carefully. Inside the elephant's head was a tiny camera lens. Vivian had been recording them, not for safety, for evidence. She planned to show proof that the children were difficult, that Adelaide was violent, that Oliver had accidents. Adelaide's hands shook with rage, but then she had an idea. She took the elephant to her room, covered the camera lens with black electrical tape from her father's toolbox, then carefully sewed the seam back up. Vivian never knew why her footage went dark. Adelaide smiled for the first time in weeks. 5 weeks after Nathaniel left, he finally called to say he was coming home. 2 more days, sweetheart. Then Daddy will be back. Adelaide wanted to scream into the phone, wanted to tell him everything. But Vivian stood right behind her, hand on Adelaide's shoulder, nails digging in. Okay, Daddy, see you soon. That night, Adelaide made another discovery. She'd been looking for evidence in Vivian's room again. This time, she found a journal hidden under the mattress. Adelaide opened it, read the first page. Her hands started to shake. Week 12, the children are obstacles. Robert's fortune is the goal. Maybe if the baby got sick enough, he'd send him to specialists, far away, permanently. Adelaide flipped pages. Week 18, Adelaide is smarter than expected. Need to break her spirit before she causes problems. The locked basement worked well. Need to escalate. Week 22, Derek called. Plan is in motion. Once the baby is gone, insurance pays out. 2.5 mil. Split 50-50. Then divorce and disappear. Adelaide photographed every page with the phone. Her hands trembling, her heart pounding. Vivian wasn't just abusing them. She was planning murder. Adelaide hid the journal exactly where she'd found it. Went back to her room. 2 more days. She had enough evidence now. Videos, audio, photos, diary entries, camera discovery, Vivian's own written confession. When her father came home, she would show him everything. He would see the truth, he had to. But Adelaide didn't know what would happen the next night. Didn't know that Vivian had her own timeline. Didn't know that tomorrow Oliver would stop breathing. All she knew was that she had to hold on. One more day. Just one more day. Adelaide curled up in the nursery chair with Oliver in her arms. The baby's breathing was steady. For now. Tomorrow, Ollie. Daddy comes home tomorrow. Then we'll be safe. Outside, snow began to fall again. Inside, the house settled into silence. And next door, Eleanor Whitmore added another entry to her notebook. Day 33. Pattern of neglect confirmed. Child caring for infant alone. Calling CPS tomorrow morning. She underlined it twice. The final hours had begun. The house settled into darkness at 11 p.m. Oliver slept fitfully in his crib. Fever finally broken, but his small body still weak. Adelaide lay on the floor beside him, wrapped in a blanket. Unwilling to leave her brother alone. She should have been in her own bed, should have been sleeping. But every instinct screamed at her to stay close. Something felt wrong. In the master bedroom, Vivian stood before her bathroom mirror. Her reflection stared back. Perfect makeup removed. Auburn hair loose. She looked tired. Good. Tomorrow, Nathaniel would return. He would see the exhausted stepmother who had cared for 2 difficult children for 5 weeks. He would see dark circles, would hear strain in her voice, and he would be grateful. But there was still one problem. Oliver. The baby had gotten sick despite her efforts to neglect him into weakness. That meddling doctor had intervened. That brat Adelaide had called for help. The child was more resourceful than anticipated. Time to change tactics. Vivian opened her medicine cabinet, pulled out a bottle of diphenhydramine, sleep aid, perfectly legal, available at any pharmacy. In adult doses, harmless. In infant doses, deadly. She'd done her research. An overdose would look like sudden infant death syndrome. Tragic. Unexplainable. No one's fault. The insurance payout was $2.5 million. Enough to disappear. To start over with Derek. To never pretend to care about Nathaniel's spawn again. Vivian crushed 8 pills into fine powder. Tomorrow morning, she would find the baby dead. Would call 911 in hysterics. Would play the devastated stepmother who tried so hard. Nathaniel would comfort her. Would never suspect. Perfect. Vivian mixed the powder into a bottle of formula. Walked silently toward the nursery. In her room, Adelaide jerked awake. She hadn't meant to fall asleep, but exhaustion had pulled her under. The clock read 1:17 a.m. She listened. Silence. Then footsteps, soft, careful, moving down the hallway. Adelaide's heart began to pound. She crept to her door, opened it a crack. Through the gap, she saw Vivian Nain outside the nursery. The woman wore a silk robe, held a bottle, moved like a ghost. Vivian Nain pushed open the nursery door. Adelaide's breath stopped. Every instinct screamed, run, hide, stay safe. But Oliver was in that room. Adelaide slipped into the hallway, pressed herself against the wall, moved until she could see through the nursery doorway. Vivian stood over the crib, bottle in hand. Oliver stirred, made small sounds, not quite crying. Shh, this will help you sleep. She lifted Oliver from the crib. The baby's eyes opened, confused in darkness. Vivian put the bottle to his lips. Oliver turned his head away. He'd just eaten 2 hours ago. Wasn't hungry. Drink it. Vivian's voice hardened. She forced the nipple into his mouth. Oliver struggled, small hands pushing, body twisting. But he was 10 months old and weak from illness. Vivian was stronger. She tilted his head back, squeezed the bottle. Formula flooded into Oliver's mouth. He had to swallow or choke. He swallowed. Adelaide watched in frozen horror as her brother consumed the entire bottle. Vivian set the empty bottle on the dresser, placed Oliver back in his crib. There, all better. You'll sleep now, forever. She walked toward the door. Adelaide barely had time to duck into the linen closet before Vivian passed. She held her breath until footsteps faded, until the master bedroom door clicked shut. Then she ran to the nursery. Oliver lay in his crib, eyes already growing unfocused. His small chest rose and fell in shallow breaths. Ollie! Adelaide shook him gently. Ollie, wake up. His eyes rolled toward her, saw her, didn't see her. No. Adelaide's hands trembled. Please don't go to sleep. She had to get help. She ran to her father's study, picked up the phone to call 911. Dead silence. Vivian had unplugged it. Adelaide tried the kitchen phone. Also dead. The woman had planned everything. Adelaide's mind raced. She needed help, needed someone. Then she remembered her father. He was in Chicago, but he had a phone. If Adelaide could reach him, but how Adelaide couldn't use house phones. Couldn't leave Oliver to run to a neighbor. Then she thought of Vivian's cell phone. It would be in the master bedroom, on the nightstand. Adelaide's entire body went cold at the thought. Going into that room while Vivian slept, while the monster who had just poisoned her brother lay in darkness. But Oliver's breathing was getting weaker. Adelaide didn't have a choice. She crept down the hallway. Each step felt like walking through water. The master bedroom door was closed but not locked. Adelaide turned the knob millimeter by millimeter. The hinges whispered. Inside, Vivian lay on the bed, back to the door, breathing even, asleep. The phone sat on the nightstand, 3 feet from Vivian's head. Adelaide took one step into the room, then another. The carpet muffled footsteps, but her heartbeat roared. She reached the nightstand. The phone's screen glowed. Password protected. Adelaide's hope shattered. She didn't know. Wait, she'd seen Vivian unlock her phone dozens of times. Had watched from across rooms, from doorways, from shadows. Adelaide's memory played back the finger movements. 6 digits. She tried them. The phone unlocked. Adelaide nearly cried with relief. She backed out of the room. Phone clutched to her chest. The door clicked shut behind her. In the hallway, she opened the message app with shaking fingers. Found her father's contact. Typed as fast as her small hands could manage. Daddy, please come home. Vivian gave Oliver lots of pills. He won't wake up. I'm scared. Addie. Her finger hovered over send. If Vivian found out, if she checked her phone, if she discovered, Oliver's face flashed through her mind. Growing paler, breathing slower. Adelaide pressed send. The message whooshed into the void. She deleted it from the sent folder. Put the phone back on Vivian's nightstand with the same careful silence. Then she ran to the nursery. Oliver's eyes had closed. His breathing slowed to almost nothing. Adelaide climbed into the crib beside him, pulled his small body against hers, began to sing every lullaby her mother had taught her. Hush, little baby, don't say a word. Mama's gonna buy you a mockingbird. Her voice cracked. Tears streamed. And if that mockingbird don't sing, Mama's gonna buy you a diamond ring. Oliver's chest rose, fell, each breath taking longer. Please don't leave me. Please, Ollie. Daddy's coming. Just hold on. She sang until her throat was raw, sang until she couldn't remember words and just hummed melodies, sang until night pressed down and she was sure they were both going to die. And in Chicago, 790 miles away, Nathaniel Thornton's phone buzzed. The hotel room was dark when the phone lit up. Nathaniel had finally fallen asleep 2 hours ago. After 5 weeks of 18-hour days, negotiations, contracts, the merger, none of it mattered. Because his phone was buzzing, he grabbed it, expecting an email, got a text instead from Vivian, except the message wasn't Vivian's style. "Daddy, please come home. Vivian gave Oliver lots of pills. He won't wake up. I'm scared. Addie." Nathaniel read it 3 times. His hands started to shake. This wasn't Vivian. This was his 6-year-old daughter, using Vivian's phone, begging for help. He called Vivian's number immediately. It rang and rang. Voicemail. He called the house line. Nothing. He tried Vivian's phone again. Still nothing. Nathaniel was already pulling on clothes. His mind raced through possibilities, each worse than the last. Vivian gave Oliver lots of pills. What pills? Why, how many? He won't wake up. Nathaniel's blood turned to ice. He grabbed his laptop, booked the earliest flight. 6 a.m., 3 hours away. Too long. He called the front desk. "I need a car to the airport, now. Charter me the fastest private jet to New York. I don't care what it costs." 20 minutes later, he was in a car racing toward O'Hare. 40 minutes after that, he was on a Gulfstream G650. Flight time, 90 minutes. Nathaniel sat gripping his phone, trying Vivian's number over and over. No answer. He called Greenwich Police Department. "I need a wellness check on my children. Immediately." "Sir, can you explain the nature of your concern?" "My daughter sent me a message saying her brother won't wake up. My wife isn't answering. Something is very wrong." "What's the address?" Nathaniel gave it. Listened to the operator's calm voice promising to dispatch an officer. But right away wasn't fast enough. Nathaniel stared out the window at darkness below. Somewhere down there, his children were in danger. His baby son might be dying, and he was trapped in a metal tube flying at 600 miles per hour that still felt like standing still. He thought about the past 5 weeks, how he'd thrown himself into work, how he'd been grateful for Vivian's reassurances, how he'd been a coward. Again, he'd run after Charlotte died, run from grief and crushing weight of single parenthood. And he'd married the first woman who offered to take that weight. Never asked the right questions, never looked closely, never wanted to see what might be underneath, because seeing would mean acknowledging his mistake, would mean admitting he'd brought danger into his children's lives, would mean he'd failed them. Again, the plane couldn't fly fast enough. In Greenwich, a police cruiser pulled up to the Thornton mansion at 3:42 a.m. Officer David Morrison walked to the front door, rang the bell. Silence. He rang again. The porch light flicked on. The door opened. Vivian stood there in her robe, hair perfect despite the hour, expression concerned. "Officer, is something wrong?" "Mrs. Thornton, we received a request for a wellness check. Your husband was concerned about the children." Vivian's face shifted to confusion. "The children? They're fine. Asleep upstairs. Nathaniel must have had a nightmare. You know how travel stress can be. He mentioned a message about pills." "Oh." Vivian laughed softly. "Adelaide got into my medicine cabinet yesterday. Nothing serious. Just vitamins. I already spoke to poison control. Everything's fine." Officer Morrison studied her face. She looked calm, rational, honest. "Would you mind if I checked on the children just to be thorough?" "Of course not, though I'd prefer not to wake them. It's nearly 4 a.m. She led him upstairs, opened Adelaide's bedroom door first. The bed was empty. "She must be with her brother. She does that when he's not feeling well, so sweet." They moved to the nursery. Adelaide lay in the crib with Oliver, both children asleep. In dim light from the hallway, they looked peaceful. "See both fine." Vivian smiled. "Should I wake them to prove it?" Officer Morrison shook his head. That won't be necessary. I'll let Mr. Thornton know everyone's safe. Thank you, officer. Sorry for the confusion. She walked him out. As soon as the cruiser pulled away, Vivian's smile disappeared. She went back upstairs, looked into the nursery. Adelaide's eyes were open, watching. Clever girl, Vivian whispered, but not clever enough. She closed the door, went back to bed. In the crib, Adelaide held Oliver tighter. The police had come, had left, had done nothing. Because to everyone else, Vivian looked perfect. No one would believe a 6-year-old. Adelaide checked Oliver's breathing. Still shallow, still weak. She began to sing again. At 5:12 a.m., Nathaniel's plane touched down at Westchester County Airport. A car was waiting. Greenwich, fast. The driver nodded, pulled onto the highway. Morning traffic hadn't started. They made it to Greenwich in 38 minutes. The sun was just rising when Nathaniel's car pulled through the iron gates. Every light in the house was off. Everything looked normal, peaceful, safe. For one moment, Nathaniel wondered if he'd overreacted. Then he remembered the terror in Adelaide's message. He unlocked the front door, stepped inside. Silence. Adelaide, Vivian. Nothing. He took the stairs 2 at a time. The master bedroom was empty. Vivian's side of the bed was cold. Adelaide's room was empty too. Nathaniel moved to the nursery, pushed open the door. His world stopped. Adelaide sat in the rocking chair holding Oliver. The baby's skin was grey, his body limp. The empty bottle of diphenhydramine lay on the dresser. Adelaide looked up with eyes that had seen hell. She gave him the pills, Daddy. Lots of pills. He won't wake up. The words from the text, spoken aloud, real. Nathaniel crossed the room, took Oliver from Adelaide's arms. The baby's body was cool, his breathing almost imperceptible. How long ago? 4 hours, maybe 5. I tried to keep him awake, but Adelaide's voice broke. Nathaniel pulled out his phone with shaking hands. Dialed 911. My son, he's 10 months old. Overdose of diphenhydramine. Not breathing well. We need an ambulance now. He gave the address, answered questions on autopilot, then looked at his daughter. Where's Vivian? I don't know, she was here. The police came, but she lied and they left. Police had already been here, had seen nothing wrong, had left his children with a woman who poisoned his son. Rage flooded through Nathaniel. But beneath the rage was something worse. Guilt. He had done this, had brought Vivian into their lives, had ignored warnings, had abandoned his children, had failed them in every way that mattered. I'm sorry, he whispered, pulling Adelaide against him with his free arm, Oliver between them. I'm so sorry, baby girl. I should have been here, should have protected you. Adelaide didn't cry. She'd cried all her tears during the long night. She just held her father and brother, waited for help. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. The ambulance screamed through Greenwich's empty streets. Inside, paramedics worked on Oliver with quick movements. IV line, oxygen mask, monitors beeping urgent warnings. Adelaide sat in the corner, small, silent, watching. Nathaniel held her hand, tried not to fall apart. How much did she give him? A paramedic asked. I don't know, the bottle's empty. It was full yesterday. The paramedics exchanged looks. 20 adult doses in a full bottle, enough to kill an infant 10 times over. At Greenwich Hospital, Oliver was rushed into pediatric emergency. Dr. Rebecca Ashworth was waiting. She'd been on call when the ambulance call came, had recognized the name, Thornton, had remembered the little girl who begged for help days ago. Gastric lavage, she ordered. Activated charcoal, start fluids, full toxicology. Nurses moved around Oliver's small body with controlled urgency. Adelaide watched through the emergency room doors until a nurse gently moved her to the waiting area. Sweetheart, the doctors need space. You did so good taking care of your brother, but we've got him now. Adelaide sat in a plastic chair. Nathaniel sat beside her. Neither spoke. They waited. 30 minutes passed like 30 hours. Then Dr. Ashworth emerged. Scrubs splattered with evidence of the fight to save Oliver's life. He's stable. We pumped his stomach and the charcoal should absorb what's left. She sat down across from them. Another hour and there's nothing we could have done. 60 more minutes and your son would be dead. Nathaniel's face crumpled. Adelaide spoke for the first time since arriving. I have proof. Dr. Ashworth looked at the 6-year-old with new attention. Proof of what? Everything. What Vivian did. She pulled her teddy bear onto her lap, opened the zipper. Charlotte's old cell phone fell into her hands. Nathaniel stared. Adelaide, where did you get that? Mama's closet. I've been using it to record Vivian, so you would believe me. Adelaide turned on the phone, hands no longer shaking. She'd done what she needed to do. Now the adults could take over. She scrolled through files. 12 videos, 8 audio recordings, 47 photographs, a diary app with 33 dated entries. She handed the phone to her father. Watch. Nathaniel pressed play on the first video. The screen showed Vivian grabbing Adelaide's arm, shaking her, throwing her against a wall. Vivian's voice cold and sharp. Your father doesn't care about you. You're just a burden. The video ended. Nathaniel's hands trembled as he opened the next file. Audio recording. Vivian's threat. If you tell anyone, Oliver will have an accident. A fatal accident. Then photos. Oliver alone in his crib screaming. Unchanged for hours. Timestamp. 11:47 a.m. to 4:22 p.m. Adelaide standing on the back porch in a snowstorm. No coat. Shaking violently. Timestamp showing she'd been out there over an hour. Bruises on both children. Different ages. Different colors. The diary entries broke him. Day 12, Vivian locked us in the basement. Oliver screamed until he couldn't make sounds. I sang to him in the dark. Day 23, no food all day. I tried to make peanut butter sandwiches, but Vivian threw them away, said I needed to learn discipline. Day 30, Vivian grabbed my hair and pulled me downstairs. She said if I tell Daddy, she'll kill Oliver and make it look like Sid's. Entry after entry, evidence of systematic abuse, all documented by a 6-year-old child who learned she couldn't rely on adults. So she protected herself. Dr. Ashworth watched the videos over Nathaniel's shoulder, her face growing harder. This is attempted murder. I'm calling the police. I already called them, Nathaniel said, voice hollow. They came at 3 a.m. Vivian told them everything was fine. They believed her. They'll believe this. Dr. Ashworth took the phone. This is documented proof. They can't ignore it. She stepped away, made a call. Nathaniel pulled Adelaide into his lap. She was too big for this, almost too heavy, but he held her anyway. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I wasn't there. So sorry I didn't see. So sorry I let this happen. Adelaide's arms went around his neck. You're here now. That's what matters. But it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. Nathaniel had let his children suffer for weeks, had been so consumed by grief that he'd handed them to a monster. Some failures couldn't be forgiven. All he could do was make sure it never happened again. 30 minutes later, Detective James Porter arrived. 53, gray at the temples, weary eyes. But when he watched Adelaide's videos, his eyes grew sharp. How old are you, sweetheart? 6. 6 years old, and you documented months of abuse with precision of a trained investigator. He shook his head. You're the bravest kid I've ever met. He turned to Nathaniel. Where's your wife now? I don't know. When I got home, she wasn't there. We'll find her. Porter made a note. This phone I needed as evidence. Okay. Adelaide had expected this. But there's more. She reached into her teddy bear, pulled out a small notebook, her diary, handwritten, dated, specific. Porter read the first few pages. His jaw tightened. This is enough to bury her. Adelaide took a breath. One more thing. In my teddy bear, Mama left something. She pulled out the USB drive Charlotte had hidden. Nathaniel stared. What is this? Mama's insurance. She said if anything happened, this would explain everything. Porter plugged the USB into his laptop. A video file auto-played. Charlotte Thornton appeared on screen. Thin, tired, sick, but determined. If you're watching this, something happened to me. You need to know the truth about Vivian Ashford. The video was dated 3 weeks before Charlotte's death. I hired a private investigator. She's not who she claims. Her real name is Veronica Drake. In 2017, she married a wealthy man in Portland named Richard Drake. He died 6 months later. Car went off a cliff. Brake failure. Ruled accidental, but Richard's family suspected foul play. Charlotte coughed, her antecedent shaking. In 2019, she married Peter Hammond in Seattle. She was his children's stepmother for 8 months. The youngest child, Timothy, was hospitalized 3 times for mysterious illnesses. A social worker investigated but found insufficient evidence. Peter divorced Vivian after his older son came forward about abuse. Vivian disappeared before charges could be filed. The video showed documents, police reports, hospital records, testimony. She changes her name, moves to new cities, targets wealthy widowers with young children. She's done this before. If I die, investigate my car. Investigate Vivian. Don't let her near my children. Please. The video ended. The hospital room fell into stunned silence. Detective Porter was already on his phone. I need forensic analysis on a vehicle. Charlotte Thornton died in a single car accident 11 months ago. I want that car examined for tampering. Now. He hung up. Looked at Nathaniel. Your wife didn't die in an accident. She was murdered. And your current wife is a serial predator who's been killing for profit for at least 7 years. Nathaniel couldn't breathe. Charlotte had known, had tried to warn him, had left evidence to protect their children even after death. And he'd ignored every sign. Had married Vivian anyway. Had given a murderer access to his children. Where is she? His voice came out strangled. Where's Vivian? We're looking. She's not at your house. Her car's gone. But we'll find her. Porter's phone rang. He answered, listened. His face hardened. Got her. She tried to cross into Canada at the Champlain border crossing. Border Patrol flagged her car. She's in custody. Nathaniel felt something break inside him. Relief, rage, grief, all crashing down. I want to see her. Mr. Thornton, I want to see the woman who murdered my wife and tried to kill my son. Porter studied him. Not today, but soon. After she's charged and processed, I'll arrange it. Nathaniel nodded. For now, his children needed him more than his need for answers. He turned to Adelaide, sitting with those 2 old eyes. Thank you. You saved Oliver's life. You saved both your lives. You're the bravest person I know. Adelaide leaned against him. I kept my promise to Mama. You kept it, baby girl. You kept it. Dr. Ashworth returned with news. Oliver's stable enough to move to pediatric ICU. You can see him in a few minutes. Adelaide stood immediately. Can I go with him? Of course, sweetheart. They followed the doctor through sterile hallways. Oliver lay in a bed surrounded by machines, tubes and wires everywhere. But his color was better, his breathing stronger. Adelaide climbed onto the bed beside him. Hi, Ollie. It's me. You're okay now, Daddy's here. The bad lady's gone. We're safe. Oliver's eyes opened, unfocused, confused, but alive. He looked at his sister, made a small sound. Adelaide smiled, the first real smile Nathaniel had seen in months. That's right. I am here. I'll always be here. She sang softly, a lullaby their mother had taught her. And Oliver, 10 months old, and survivor of attempted murder, fell into real sleep for the first time in days. Nathaniel watched his children, felt the full weight of what he'd almost lost. But they were alive, damaged, traumatized, scarred, but alive. And he would spend the rest of his life making sure they stayed that way. News of Vivian's arrest spread through Greenwich like wildfire. The wealthy stepmother accused of attempted murder. The 6-year-old who documented months of abuse. The baby who barely survived. The media descended. Nathaniel hired security to keep reporters from the hospital, but he couldn't stop the headlines. Connecticut CEO's wife charged in attempted murder of infant stepson. 6-year-old girl's secret evidence. exposes serial killer stepmother. The stories were everywhere. Public opinion split. Half saw Vivian as a monster. The other half wondered if charges were exaggerated, if Nathaniel was using wealth to destroy an innocent woman. Vivian's defense lawyer gave interviews. My client is devastated by these false accusations. She devoted herself to caring for those children. This is a wealthy, powerful man weaponizing the justice system. The narrative was calculated, precise, and it was working until Eleanor Whitmore came forward. The 70-year-old neighbor appeared on local news with her notebook. I witnessed this systematic abuse for 6 months. I documented everything, dates, times, specific incidents. I watched that woman lock a 6-year-old child outside in a snowstorm. I saw bruises. I heard screaming, and I reported it to Child Protective Services. She looked directly into the camera. The system failed these children, but that little girl didn't fail her brother. She saved him, and I'll testify to everything I saw. The tide began to turn. Harriet Bellamy, the fired nanny, spoke to reporters. I warned Mr. Thornton about Vivian before they married. I told him something was wrong. He didn't listen. I regret not pushing harder, not going to the police myself. She wiped tears. But Adelaide called me when Oliver was sick. That little girl knew her stepmother wouldn't help, so she called the one person who might. She's a hero. Dr. Ashworth gave a carefully worded statement. I examined Oliver Thornton multiple times over the past months. He showed signs of neglect and possible abuse. I reported my concerns. The evidence Adelaide gathered is the most comprehensive documentation of systematic child abuse I've seen in 20 years of pediatric medicine. The defense lawyer tried to spin it, tried to paint Nathaniel as controlling, Adelaide as confused. But then the previous victims came forward. Timothy Hammond, now 15, appeared with his father at a press conference. Veronica Drake, who you know as Vivian Thornton, was my stepmother for 8 months in 2019. She abused me and my younger brother. She poisoned my brother 3 separate times. We have hospital records, police reports. When my dad tried to press charges, she disappeared. Timothy looked at the camera with haunted eyes. I'm testifying against her. I'm telling everyone what she did because Adelaide Thornton saved her brother. I couldn't save mine. My little brother Daniel is still in therapy, still has nightmares. His voice broke. Don't let her hurt anyone else. The defense crumbled. Within a week, 3 more families came forward. Different states, different names, same pattern. Vivian Ashford was Veronica Drake, was Victoria Anders, was Valerie Sutton. At least 4 identities, 4 wealthy widowers, 6 children abused, 2 husbands dead under suspicious circumstances, and now, finally, evidence too strong to dismiss. The district attorney held a press conference. We are charging Vivian Ashford, also known as Veronica Drake, with first-degree murder in the death of Charlotte Thornton, attempted murder in the poisoning of Oliver Thornton, multiple counts of child abuse, conspiracy to commit murder, and fraud. She paused. We are also investigating the deaths of Richard Drake and circumstances surrounding other families. This is ongoing. We believe there may be more victims. The bail hearing was swift. Given the defendant's history of fleeing jurisdiction, the severity of charges and risk to public safety, bail is denied. The defendant will remain in custody until trial. Vivian's face remained impassive, but her eyes, when they found the camera, burned with cold fury. She mouthed 2 words. This isn't over. But it was. 4 months after Vivian's arrest, the trial began. The courthouse in Stamford was surrounded by media, satellite trucks, cameras, reporters on the steps. Inside the courtroom was packed. Judge Patricia Montgomery presided. 63 years old, steel grey hair, no patience for theatrics. This court will maintain order and decorum. Anyone who disrupts proceedings will be removed. Clear. The gallery murmured agreement. Vivian sat at the defense table in a conservative suit, hair pulled back, makeup minimal. She looked like a suburban mother, not a serial predator. Her lawyer had coached her well. The prosecution called their first witness. Eleanor Whitmore took the stand. She wore her best dress. Her hands shook slightly, but her voice was steady. Mrs. Whitmore, you lived next door to the Thornton family for how long? 15 years. I knew Charlotte before she passed. Beautiful woman. When Vivian Ashford married Nathaniel Thornton, did you observe the household? I did. I'm retired. I spent time on my porch. I noticed things. What did you notice about Mrs. Ashford's treatment of the children? Eleanor opened her notebook. I witnessed Adelaide being locked outside in a snowstorm on December 14th at 2:47 p.m. Temperature was 28 degrees. The child had no coat. She was outside for at least 63 minutes before being allowed back inside. She flipped pages. December 3rd, 11:15 a.m. Saw Vivian grab Adelaide by the arm, lift the child off the ground, throw her against the kitchen wall. More pages. November 17th through January 8th. Documented 73 separate incidents of neglect or abuse, all detailed here with dates, times, observations. The defense attorney stood. Mrs. Whitmore, isn't it true you were merely a busybody neighbor spying on a family? Eleanor's eyes hardened. I'm a human being with eyes and a conscience. When I see a child being hurt, I act. I reported to Child Protective Services. They investigated and found nothing because that woman is very good at lying. She looked at Vivian. But I kept watching, kept recording, because someone needed to protect those babies. I'm glad I did. The courtroom was silent. No further questions, the defense attorney said quietly. Next came Dr. Ashworth. She brought medical records, growth charts, photos of bruises and frostbite scars. Oliver Thornton weighed 14 pounds at 10 months old. He should have weighed at least 20. He showed signs of severe malnutrition failure to thrive and evidence of physical abuse. She presented lab results from the night of the poisoning. The level of diphenhydramine in his system was consistent with 8 to 10 adult doses. For an infant, his size, this amount is absolutely lethal. If Adelaide hadn't called for help when she did, Oliver would have died within hours. The defense tried to argue accidental overdose, confused dosing, tragic mistake. Dr. Ashworth shut it down. No reasonable person mistakes adult sleep medication for infant medication. No reasonable person gives 8 pills to a baby. This was deliberate. This was attempted murder. Harriet Bellamy testified next. She told the court about warning Nathaniel, about being fired, about the phone call from Adelaide. That little girl was 6 years old, and she knew more about caring for a baby than the woman who was supposed to be their mother. She knew feeding schedules, diaper routines, sleep patterns, because she'd been doing it all herself for months. Harriet's voice broke. I should have done more. Should have called the police myself. Should have fought harder. I'll regret that for the rest of my life. Timothy Hammond took the stand. Now 15, he'd flown in from Seattle with his father. Veronica Drake was my stepmother for 8 months when I was 8. She poisoned my brother Daniel 3 times. We have medical records. She said it was accidents, food allergies, stomach flu. He looked at the jury. But I saw her put something in his juice once, when she didn't know I was watching. Daniel almost died that night. My dad finally believed me. But by the time we got lawyers, she disappeared. What would you like to see happen in this case? The prosecutor asked. Justice. For Adelaide and Oliver. For Daniel. For all the kids she's hurt. And I want to make sure she never gets the chance to hurt anyone ever again. The witnesses built an overwhelming case. But everyone knew the most important testimony was yet to come. Adelaide Thornton. The courtroom fell silent when Adelaide's name was called. She walked from the gallery where she'd been sitting with her father, 6 years old, in a blue dress, hair in careful braids, clutching a teddy bear. She walked to the witness stand with steps that seemed impossibly small. Judge Montgomery smiled gently. Hello, sweetheart. Do you know why you're here? Yes, ma'am. To tell the truth about what happened. That's right. Do you promise to tell the truth? I promise. The judge's eyes softened. Go ahead and sit down. You're very brave. Adelaide climbed into the witness chair. Her feet didn't touch the ground. The prosecutor approached. "Hi, Adelaide. My name is Miss Warren. Can you tell the court how old you are?" 6.5. "Do you know the woman sitting over there?" Miss Warren gestured to Vivian. Adelaide looked directly at her former stepmother. Vivian stared back with cold, empty eyes. "Yes, that's Vivian. She married my daddy after my mama died." "When your mama died, how did that make you feel?" "Sad and scared because I didn't know who would take care of me and Oliver." "Who's Oliver?" "My baby brother. Mama made me promise to watch over him." Adelaide's voice was clear, steady. She'd practiced this with Dot Palmer. "Did Vivian take care of you and Oliver?" "No, ma'am." "Can you tell us what happened instead?" Adelaide took a breath. Then she told them everything. She told them about being locked outside in the snow until her fingers turned black, about watching Vivian grab Oliver by the throat and threaten him, about days without food, hours of crying ignored, bruises and fear and desperate silence. She told them about finding her mother's phone and deciding to record what was happening. "Why did you do that?" Miss Warren asked gently. "Because grown-ups didn't believe me. They believed Vivian. So I needed proof, real proof they couldn't ignore." "But that was very smart, very brave." Adelaide shrugged. "I had to protect Ollie." "Tell us about the night Oliver got sick." Adelaide's hands tightened on her teddy bear. "He'd been sick all day. I asked Vivian to call the doctor. She said no. That night I woke up and saw her go into Oliver's room. I watched through the door." "What did you see?" "She had a bottle. She made Oliver drink it. He didn't want to, but she made him, all of it." "What happened next?" "Oliver got really quiet. His eyes looked funny. I tried to wake him up, but he wouldn't open his eyes." Adelaide's voice wavered. "I thought he was going to die, like Mama." "What did you do?" "I used Vivian's phone to send a message to Daddy. I told him what happened, that Oliver wouldn't wake up, that I was scared." "How did you know to do that?" "Because no one was going to save us. Daddy was gone. The police came before, but they didn't help. I had to do it myself." The courtroom was absolutely silent. Every eye on the small girl in the witness chair. "Then what happened?" "I held Oliver all night. I sang to him. I told him to stay alive until Daddy came home. And he did. Daddy saved us." Miss Warren nodded. "Thank you, Adelaide. You're incredibly brave." The defense attorneys stood for cross-examination. He was approached carefully, aware of how this would look. "Adelaide, you loved your mother very much, didn't you?" "Yes, sir." "When she died, you were very sad." "Yes, sir." "When your father married Vivian, were you happy about that?" Adelaide thought about the question. "No, sir. I wanted my mama back." "So you didn't like Vivian from the start?" "I didn't know her, but I wanted to try for Daddy." "But you never really gave her a chance, did you?" Adelaide's eyes narrowed. "She locked me in a freezing basement. She hit me. She starved Oliver. She tried to kill him. I gave her lots of chances. She hurt us anyway." The lawyer tried again. "Isn't it possible you misunderstood some of what you saw?" Adelaide looked at him with those two old eyes. "I'm 6, not stupid. I know the difference between an accident and someone trying to hurt you on purpose. I know what I saw. I have proof. Videos, pictures, recordings, 33 entries in my diary, all dated, all real." She leaned forward slightly. "I was there every day, every night, protecting my brother because no one else would. I'm not confused. I'm not lying. And I'm not going to let you make everyone think I am." The courtroom erupted in spontaneous applause. Judge Montgomery let it continue for a moment before calling for order. The defense attorney sat down. He had no more questions. Adelaide was excused. She climbed down from the witness stand, walked back to her father. Nathaniel pulled her onto his lap, held her tight. "You did so good, baby girl. So good." Adelaide buried her face in his shoulder. The worst part was over. The truth was out. Now they just had to wait for justice. The prosecution rested. 3 days of testimony, mountains of evidence, videos that made jurors weep, medical records that made them angry, a 6-year-old's courage that made them believe in heroes. Now it was the defense's turn. Vivian's lawyer called character witnesses. People who knew her as Vivian Ashford, colleagues, women from her book club, a yoga instructor. They all said the same thing. She was lovely, professional, caring. None had ever seen her with the children. The defense tried to paint Nathaniel as controlling, as a man who regretted his marriage, used wealth to destroy an innocent woman. They brought in a psychologist who testified that children at Adelaide's age were prone to fantasy, to misinterpreting adult actions. The prosecution tore the theory apart on cross-examination. Doctor, have you reviewed the videos Adelaide recorded? I have. The audio recordings? Yes. The medical evidence showing systematic abuse? The psychologist shifted. I've seen it. The testimony from multiple witnesses corroborating Adelaide's account? Yes. And you still believe a 6-year-old child fabricated all of this? A long pause. No. The defense's case crumbled. On the 4th day, they played their final card. They put Vivian's on the stand. She wore a grey suit, hair pulled back, minimal makeup. She'd lost weight in custody, looked fragile, vulnerable. She took the oath and sat down. Her lawyer began gently. Mrs. Thornton, did you love your husband? Very much. Nathaniel was everything to me. And his children. Vivian's eyes filled with tears. I tried so hard with them, but they never accepted me. Adelaide especially. She was so angry about her mother's death. She took it out on me. Did you ever hurt those children? Never. I would never. I'm not a monster. Then how do you explain the evidence? The videos, the recordings. Vivian dabbed her eyes with a tissue. Adelaide was clever. She would provoke me, make messes, act out, then turn on a camera and cry, make it look like I was abusing her when I was just trying to maintain discipline. Her voice shook. I loved those children. I gave up everything to care for them. And this is how they repay me, with lies. It was a masterful performance, almost believable. Then the prosecution stood for cross-examination. Miss Warren approached the stand with a tablet in her hand. Mrs. Thornton, you testified that you never hurt the children. Correct. That's correct. Never locked Adelaide outside in a snowstorm. That was a misunderstanding. She was only out there for 5 minutes. Really? Miss Warren pulled up Eleanor Whitmore's testimony. Mrs. Whitmore testified it was over an hour. She timed it. She was mistaken. Never threatened to make Oliver disappear. Of course not. Miss Warren played an audio recording. Vivian's voice, cold and clear. If you tell anyone, Oliver will have an accident. A fatal accident. Vivian's face went pale. That was taken out of context. What context makes threatening to kill a baby acceptable? I didn't mean it literally. I was frustrated. You were frustrated, so you threatened to murder a 10-month-old infant. No, you're twisting my words. Miss Warren's voice sharpened. Let's talk about the night Oliver was poisoned. You gave him sleeping medication. Why? I didn't. He must have gotten into the medicine cabinet. He was 10 months old. He couldn't walk. How did he get into a cabinet 5 feet off the ground? Vivian's hands clenched. I don't know, maybe Adelaide. Are you seriously suggesting a 6-year-old poisoned her baby brother? She was trying to frame me. By nearly killing the child she'd been protecting for months. The courtroom began to murmur. Judge Montgomery called for order. Miss Warren pressed harder. Let's talk about your past. Your real name is Veronica Drake, isn't it? Vivian's lawyer stood. Objection. Relevance. Your Honor, this goes to pattern and motive. I'll allow it. Miss Warren turned back to Vivian. You were married before, to Richard Drake in Portland. He died in a car accident in 2017. Brake failure. That was investigated. It was ruled accidental. After which you collected a $2 million life insurance payout. I was his wife. That's normal. Then you married Peter Hammond in Seattle in 2019. You abused his children. Timothy testified here. Do you remember him? Vivian's jaw tightened. Those children were troubled. Multiple children across multiple states, all lying about the same pattern. Yes. And Charlotte Thornton, did she lie too? Charlotte died in a car accident. After you tampered with her brakes, The courtroom exploded. Vivian's face went white. "That's not true. You have no proof." "Actually, we do, Miss." Warren pulled up a forensic report. The police re-examined Charlotte's vehicle. They found evidence of brake line tampering, fresh tool marks, sabotage, and your fingerprints were found in Charlotte's garage 3 days before her death. Vivian stood up, her chair flying backward. "That proves nothing. I visited Charlotte. We were friends. Friends don't murder friends to steal their husbands. I didn't kill her. You murdered Charlotte Thornton so you could marry Nathaniel. Then you abused his children for months. Then you tried to kill his son for insurance money?" "No." Vivian's voice rose to a scream. "Those brats ruined everything. That stupid baby wouldn't stop crying. Adelaide was always watching, always in the way. They were obstacles. They deserved." She stopped. The courtroom went silent. Vivian realized what she'd said. Her hand flew to her mouth, but it was too late. The mask had finally shattered. Miss Warren's voice was quiet, deadly. "They deserved what Mrs. Thornton." Vivian sat down slowly. Her face had gone blank, empty. No further questions. The defense tried to recover, tried to claim Vivian had been provoked, that she'd misspoken, but the jury had seen it. The real Vivian, the monster underneath, the woman who thought children were obstacles to be removed. The defense rested. Closing arguments took half a day. The prosecution laid out evidence piece by methodical piece, built a case so airtight there was no room for doubt. Vivian Ashford, also known as Veronica Drake, is a predator. She targets wealthy widowers, ingratiates herself, murders or abuses their children, collects insurance money, then disappears to find the next victim. Miss Warren held up a photo of Adelaide and Oliver. These children survived because Adelaide Thornton refused to be a victim. At 6 years old, she documented abuse with precision of a trained detective. She protected her brother when every adult failed. She saved his life. She turned to the jury. Vivian Ashford murdered Charlotte Thornton, abused 2 innocent children, attempted to murder an infant. She did it for money, for greed, for convenience, and she did it without remorse. Miss Warren's voice rang through the courtroom. "Find her guilty on every count. Give these children justice. Give Charlotte Thornton justice. And make sure Vivian Ashford never gets the chance to hurt another child again." The defense's closing was weak in comparison. After 4 hours of deliberation, the jury returned. The courtroom was packed. Adelaide sat between her father and Harriet Bellamy. Mrs. Whitmore sat behind them, hands folded in prayer. Reverend Bradford sat in the second row, Dr. Ashworth beside him. A community that had rallied around 2 broken children, waiting for justice. Judge Montgomery entered. "All rise." Everyone stood. "Please be seated." Has the jury reached a verdict? The foreman stood. A woman in her 50s with kind eyes. "We have your honor. Please read the verdict." The foreman unfolded a paper. In the matter of the state versus Vivian Ashford, on the charge of first-degree murder in the death of Charlotte Thornton, we find the defendant guilty. Nathaniel's hand tightened on Adelaide's. On the charge of attempted first-degree murder of Oliver Thornton, we find the defendant guilty. Adelaide's breath caught. On the charges of child abuse against Adelaide and Oliver Thornton, we find the defendant guilty on all counts. The foreman continued through the list. Conspiracy, fraud, evidence tampering, guilty, guilty, guilty on every single charge. Vivian sat motionless. Her face showed nothing, but her hands shook. The courtroom erupted in applause. Judge Montgomery allowed it before calling for order. "The defendant will rise." Vivian stood on unsteady legs. "Vivian Ashford, you have been found guilty by a jury of your peers. Sentencing will be held in 2 weeks. Until then, you will remain in custody. Bailiff." The bailiff moved to handcuff Vivian. As he did, she turned, looked directly at Adelaide. Her eyes burned with rage. She mouthed 2 words. This isn't over. But Reverend Bradford leaned forward, whispered to Adelaide, "Yes, it is, child. Evil loses. Love wins. Always." Vivian was led away. The moment the doors closed, Nathaniel pulled Adelaide into his arms. "It's over, baby girl. She can't hurt you anymore." Adelaide buried her face in her father's shoulder. For the first time since the nightmare began, she felt safe. 2 weeks later, the courtroom filled again for sentencing. Judge Montgomery looked older, tired. This case had taken something from everyone. "I've presided over criminal cases for 34 years. I've seen violence, greed, cruelty. But I've never seen anything like this." She looked at Vivian. "You are a predator. You targeted vulnerable families, murdered a mother, tortured her children, attempted to kill an infant, and you did it all with calculation and premeditation." The judge's voice hardened. "You showed no remorse, no empathy, no recognition of the pain you inflicted. Even when confronted with irrefutable evidence, you lied. You blamed the children. You played the victim." She picked up her sentencing document. "For the first-degree murder of Charlotte Thornton, I sentence you to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole." Vivian's face went gray. "For the attempted murder of Oliver Thornton, I sentence you to 75 years to run consecutively." Consecutively, not concurrently. Even if the murder conviction was somehow overturned, Vivian would still die in prison for the abuse charges and related crimes, an additional 30 years, also consecutive. Judge Montgomery looked at Vivian with disgust. "You will spend the rest of your natural life in prison. You will never again have the opportunity to hurt a child. You will never profit from your crimes. You will never see freedom again." She struck her gavel. "May God have mercy on your soul, because this court has none." Bailiffs moved to take Vivian away. She turned one last time, her face twisted with hate. But Adelaide didn't flinch, didn't look away. She'd faced this woman's cruelty for months, had survived it, had defeated it. Vivian had no power over her anymore. As they led the convicted murderer away, Adelaide turned to her father. "Is it really over? Really, truly over?" Adelaide nodded, then looked at the people around them. Mrs. Whitmore, who had documented everything. Harriet, who had answered the phone. Dr. Ashworth, who had saved Oliver's life. Reverend Bradford, who had prayed with them. A community that had failed them at first, but had shown up when it mattered most. "Thank you, all of you, for believing me." Mrs. Whitmore wiped tears. "Sweetheart, you saved yourself. We just helped." "But you helped when it counted." Reverend Bradford knelt beside Adelaide's chair. "You know what I think your mama sent us, sent all of us, to watch over you when she couldn't." Adelaide touched the cross necklace around her neck, the one Charlotte had given her. "Maybe, not maybe, definitely." He smiled. "You're a miracle child." Outside the courthouse, media swarmed. Nathaniel held Adelaide's hand, made a brief statement. "Justice was served today. My children are safe. That's all that matters. We ask for privacy as our family heals. Thank you." He didn't take questions, just led Adelaide to the car and drove away. Behind them, the media circus continued. But none of it mattered to Adelaide. She was going home, to a house by the ocean, where Oliver waited with Mrs. Clark, the new nanny, where there were no bad memories, no ghosts, just a chance to start over. Snow fell softly on the Connecticut shoreline. December 2031. The small house near the beach was decorated for Christmas. White lights along the roofline, a wreath on the door, the smell of pine and cinnamon. Inside Adelaide, Thornton sat at the kitchen table doing homework. She was 13 now, tall for her age, with her mother's blonde hair grown long, and her father's blue eyes bright with intelligence. The haunted look was gone, replaced by confidence, strength, joy. In the living room, Oliver played with Legos, 8 years old, healthy, happy, with no memory of the nightmare he'd survived as a baby. He knew the story, how his sister had saved his life, but it felt distant. He knew he was lucky. Knew his sister was a hero, but mostly he knew he was loved. Addie, Oliver called. Come see what I built. Adelaide looked up from algebra homework, smiled. 1 second, Ollie. She finished the problem, walked to the living room. Oliver had constructed an elaborate spaceship from blocks, wings, engines, a cockpit. That's amazing. Where's it going? To save people, like you did. Adelaide's throat tightened. She ruffled her brother's hair. You're pretty great, you know that. I know. Oliver grinned. Dad says you're coming to the foundation thing tomorrow. Will there be cake? Probably. It's the anniversary celebration. The Charlotte Thornton Foundation was celebrating its 7th year. Nathaniel had established it 9 months after Vivian's conviction, a non-profit dedicated to child abuse prevention, support for survivors, education for caregivers. In 7 years, they'd helped 212 children escape abusive situations, funded therapy for hundreds more, trained thousands of professionals to recognize abuse. The foundation had become Nathaniel's life's work, redemption for the months he'd failed his own children. Adelaide volunteered every Saturday, led support groups for young survivors, told her story to anyone who would listen, showed them that survival was possible, that healing was real. She was 13 years old and already saving lives. The front door opened. Nathaniel came in, shaking snow from his coat, arms full of groceries. Storm's getting worse. We might be snowed in for the weekend. Perfect, Adelaide said. I'll make hot chocolate. She moved to the kitchen with practiced ease. This house felt like home in a way the mansion never had. Small but warm, filled with laughter instead of silence, love instead of fear. Photos covered every wall. Not professional portraits, but candid shots. Oliver's first day of school, Adelaide winning the science fair, family trips, Thanksgiving dinners, a life built from ashes. And in the center of the mantel, a silver-framed photo of Charlotte, young, beautiful, alive, watching over them. That evening they were sat by the fireplace. The snow outside had turned into a full blizzard, but inside it was cozy and safe. Nathaniel read to Oliver from a chapter book. Adelaide worked on a drawing for art class. Mrs. Patricia Clark knitted in the corner chair. She'd been with them for 6 years, had become family, grandmother, guardian, friend. At 8:30, Oliver yawned. Bedtime, buddy, Nathaniel said. But it's Friday, and you have basketball in the morning. Even if we're snowed in, we're still doing drills. Oliver groaned, but headed upstairs. Adelaide followed to say goodnight. She tucked him in, made sure his nightlight was on, placed his favorite stuffed elephant within reach. Addie, Oliver's voice was sleepy. Do you still have bad dreams? She thought about lying, but she'd promised herself honesty with Oliver. Sometimes, not as much as before. What do you do when you have them? I remember that they're just dreams, that the bad things already happened and we survived, that we're safe now. Oliver nodded. Because Dad's here, and you're here, and nothing bad can happen when we're together. Adelaide smiled. Exactly. I love you, Addie. Love you too, Ollie. Sweet dreams. She kissed his forehead. Left the door cracked. Downstairs, Nathaniel was banking the fire. He down. Out like a light, they sat together on the couch. Outside, the wind howled. Inside, the silence was comfortable. Big day tomorrow. 7 years of the foundation. I know. Are you nervous about the speech? A little. I keep thinking about everything that led here. How close we came to losing it all. Adelaide took her father's hand. But we didn't lose it. We're here. We're okay. And we're helping other people. That matters. Nathaniel looked at his daughter, 13 years old and wiser than most adults. When did you get so grown up? When I had to. Adelaide shrugged. But I'm glad I did. I'm glad I'm strong enough to help other kids. Your mother would be so proud of you. I hope so. They sat in comfortable silence until Adelaide yawned. Bedtime for you too. I'm not tired. Liar. Go, I'll clean up. Adelaide hugged her father goodnight, headed upstairs. In her room, she changed into pajamas, sat on her bed. Her teddy bear, the one that had hidden evidence and helped save Oliver's life, sat on her shelf. Worn now, loved. She picked it up, hugged it. We did good, didn't we? The bear didn't answer. But Adelaide felt something. A warmth, a presence. Her mother maybe, watching from wherever she was. Proud. Adelaide set the bear back, climbed into bed. Tomorrow they would celebrate the foundation, would honor Charlotte's memory, would continue protecting children. But tonight she would sleep, safe, loved, home. The Charlotte Thornton Foundation headquarters was decorated with white ribbons and flowers. 200 people filled the event space. Donors, volunteers, families the foundation had helped. Nathaniel stood at a podium. 7 years ago, I failed my children. I was so consumed by grief that I didn't see the danger right in front of me. I married a woman who hurt them, who tried to kill them, and I wasn't there to protect them. His voice was steady but raw. My daughter Adelaide was 6 years old when she became the only thing standing between her baby brother and death. She documented abuse, gathered evidence, called for help. She saved his life when every adult failed. He gestured to Adelaide in the front row. This foundation exists because of her. Because she showed me that children shouldn't have to save themselves, that adults have a responsibility to watch, to listen, to act. Applause rippled through the room. In 7 years, we've helped 212 children escape abusive situations. We've provided therapy, legal support, and safe housing. We've trained over 5,000 professionals to recognize abuse. But we're not done. Nathaniel's voice strengthened. Every year, 700,000 children in America experience abuse or neglect. Most never report it. They suffer in silence because they don't think anyone will believe them, because they're afraid. He looked directly at the camera recording the event. If you know a child who's being hurt, speak up. Call the hotline at 1-800-422-4453. Report to authorities. Be the adult that child needs, because one phone call can save a life. The crowd stood and applauded. After the speeches, Adelaide walked through the event, talked to families the foundation had helped. A 10-year-old girl who'd escaped her abusive father. A pair of siblings removed from neglectful guardians. A teenager who'd found courage to report sexual abuse after hearing Adelaide's story. Each one thanked her. Each one called her a hero, but Adelaide didn't feel like a hero. She'd just done what needed to be done. Late in the afternoon as the event wound down, Nathaniel pulled Adelaide aside. I have something for you. He handed her an envelope. What is it? Open it. Inside was a letter. The paper old, slightly yellowed, the handwriting unmistakable. Charlotte's. Where did you find this? In her things, in a box labeled, for Adelaide, 13th birthday. I think she knew. Adelaide's hands shook as she unfolded the letter. My darling Adelaide, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I'm so sorry I couldn't stay. I wanted to see you grow up, but I have to tell you something important. You are stronger than you know, braver than you believe, more capable than you can imagine. I asked you to watch over Oliver. It was an unfair burden for such small shoulders. But I knew you could do it. You have my strength, your father's determination, and a heart big enough to change the world. I hope you never had to use that strength. I hope you grew up safe and loved and happy. But if something bad happened, if you had to fight, if you had to be brave when you were scared, I want you to know I'm proud of you. Not because you were strong, but because you were you, kind, smart, fierce when it matters, gentle when it counts. I love you, Adelaide. From heaven or wherever I am, I'll always be watching over you. Love conquers all. Remember that. When things are dark, love is the light that guides you home. All my heart forever, Mama. P.S. 1 Corinthians 13:8. Look it up. It's true. Adelaide looked up, tears streaming. Nathaniel pulled her into a hug. She knew I'd have to protect him. I think she hoped you wouldn't, but she knew you could. Adelaide wiped her eyes, pulled out her phone, looked up the Bible verse. Love never fails. 3 words, simple, true, powerful. Charlotte had known that love would be enough, that Adelaide's love for Oliver would give her strength to do impossible things. And she'd been right. Thank you, Daddy, for keeping this, for the foundation, for being here. I'm never leaving again. You know that, right? I'm here for every school play, every soccer game, every day. I am here. I know. They stood together as the sun set through the windows, painting everything gold. Outside, Oliver played with some of the younger children. His laughter echoed, alive, healthy, whole. Everything Charlotte had hoped for, everything Adelaide had fought for. And in that moment, surrounded by people whose lives had been touched by their story, Adelaide felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. If you're hearing this story, you might wonder what happened next. Adelaide Thornton is now studying social work at Yale, planning to dedicate her life to helping abused children. Oliver is 15, captain of his school's basketball team. He knows he's blessed, knows his sister is his hero. Nathaniel Thornton stepped down as CEO to run the Charlotte Thornton Foundation full-time. In 13 years, they've helped over 1,700 children. Vivian Ashford is serving her life sentence. She has appealed multiple times. Every appeal has been denied. Eleanor Whitmore passed away in 2029 at age 76. The foundation established the Eleanor Whitmore Award for citizens who report child abuse. Harriet Bellamy became the foundation's Director of Family Services. Dr. Rebecca Ashworth serves on the foundation's Medical Advisory Board. She trains pediatricians across the country. Reverend William Bradford still leads services at the same church. He baptized Oliver when he turned 8. Timothy and Daniel Hammond are grown now. Both are advocates for abuse survivors. Both credit Adelaide with giving them courage. This story is painful, but it's important because right now somewhere a child is being hurt. A child is scared. A child is wondering if anyone will believe them. If you know a child who's suffering, speak up. Call the National Child Abuse Hotline at 1-800-422-4453. One phone call can save a life. Adelaide Thornton was 6 years old when she saved her brother. She shouldn't have had to, but she did. And because of her courage, hundreds of other children found their own courage. Evil exists. Monsters are real. But so is love. So is bravery. So is hope. And when good people act, evil loses. Always. What touched your heart about this story? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you or someone you know is experiencing abuse, please reach out. You are not alone. Help is available. Hope is real. Subscribe to hear more stories of survival, courage, and justice. Next time, the grandmother who saved 3 children from a locked basement. Thank you for being here, for caring, for listening. God bless you and keep you safe. May love always win in your life, just as it did for Adelaide and Oliver. May you have the courage to speak when you see wrong. And may you always remember you are never too small to make a difference. Adelaide Thornton proved that. And so can you.